hope that answers your question. Please tell me if it doesn't. Okay. Evan, if God wants people to believe it exists, why does God not provide evidence? Excellent, right? So there are actually a number of philosophers of religion who make this very argument, right? Which is that, if the kind of God that is typically described exists, well, they obviously created us with intelligent, rational minds, right? Wouldn't they want us to use those minds, right? They obviously made us curious beings. Wouldn't they want us to be able to potentially have answers to those questions? It seems sort of sadistic to create, right, very curious beings and, have it be arrange it such that they'll never be able to answer their questions, right? That seems kind of cruel. Or to punish people without providing evidence that you believe, right? Making it maybe especially difficult for some of your creations to believe, that sort of thing. So yeah, so maybe we want to ask, what type of evidence might we expect from this traditional conception of God, right? The one we talked about again last week with all the omnis, right? Everything that stems from perfection, right? Being all present, okay, responsible for everything, all powerful. Again, traditionally all good, although there was one monotheistic religion which did not historically view their God as all good, and so they get to come out of some of these issues. But yeah, good. So it's not, again, I'm not going to be able to give you concrete answers to all of this, but there is much philosophical debate about how much evidence we might expect from God. So I think I might have mentioned this, that some philosophers argue that it's rational to believe on faith, right, without any evidence. I'm looking for nods. Did I mention that for this class? Maybe. Okay, so I think I provide her stuff in the media for this week, but a young female philosopher who argues that faith is rational. So believing in God based on no evidence, right, is going to be rational. But in this, I think I might have said this to my other class, so maybe that's why this is not ringing true, which is that you're not going to see any philosophers who are going to argue that dogma is rational. Did we have this conversation? No? Okay. So dogma is belief in spite of contrary evidence, whereas faith is just a belief. I did mention it, thank you, without evidence. Right? And so the idea is that you will see some philosophers argue that it's rational to believe in God without evidence, right? But no philosopher is going to argue that it's rational to be dogmatic, right? Even about God. Meaning that if we have enough counter evidence against God, it wouldn't be rational for us to believe, right? And so under these accounts, these theists are going to obviously argue, given that they are still theists, right, that they see themselves as having sufficient evidence, right, to at least have rational faith in God, or at least a lack of sufficient counter evidence to undermine their faith. Okay. Going back up. All right. Okay, good. Linaria, same in line with this notion of belief. Are religious doubt and belief different schools or different sides of the same coin? Again, I want to bring us back to something we mentioned at the beginning, I think, of last week, which is that belief is a spectrum, right? And so even if you identify as a theist, right, and you don't really consider yourself doubtful, still your level of confidence in your belief could vary, right, at any stage for any reason, right? And the same goes for those who doubt. And so I want to say that, belief and doubt often go hand in hand, right? Again, I don't think any of us have 100% confidence in anything, right? I mean, there are still people who, we haven't gotten to this yet because we're doing metaphysics after philosophy of religion, but, we're going to be talking about the potential idea that maybe what we're experiencing right now in this very moment is not real, right? Like maybe we're in the Matrix, or this is part of some simulation, right? If you're like an Elon Musk fan, I'm sure you've heard them talk about this, right? So a lot of people think this is a live possibility because we can't prove it's not. Right? So it's not that there's a lack of evidence, right, that things are real, but there's a lack of sufficient counter evidence to disprove that we're not in a hallucination, right? So it's really hard to prove a negative in those kinds of cases. And so again, belief and doubt often go hand in hand. So I guess you could say them as two sides of the same coin, as long as you understand them as always working together, right? I mean, unless I guess someone could absolutely cut themselves off to the possibility of something. It's like, I just believe that 0%. And then they're never ever gonna, but I don't know that I think that that's realistic that anyone actually does that. No, nobody usually has an actual 0% confidence or 100% confidence in any given belief. Okay. All right, good. Why are there a lot of religions? Okay, excellent. So, James, you are getting at something which is another really interesting issue for philosophers of religion, which is if you are going to be arguing for a god or set of gods, right? Why should we believe it's your god or your set of gods that exists as opposed to someone else's set of gods or god, right? And so this question is called, or problem, they're often posed as problems in philosophy, the problem of religious diversity, right?